Alright you guys, today I want to talk about Ford's best and worst engines. I'm going to try to stick to engines from the last 20 years, but there's one honorable mention. Alright, no particular order here because they're all really good, the ones that I'm going to mention. I'm going to start with the straight six, the 300 cubic inch straight six. Those are usually found in early 90s pickups and late 80s, and actually all the way back to the 70s, I believe. You can run the straight six hard, work it to death, and it's just not going to die. It will last forever. The 300 was made by International. It's a commercial grade engine. The the power valve train, I can't talk today, is driven by gears. There's no timing chains. There's no timing belt. It's all gears. It's a very durable engine. The next engine I want to talk about is the 4.6 liter V8 with the 2-valve train setup. 2-valve, not the 3-valve. I believe it may be called the 4.6 Romeo 2-valve, found in older F-150s, Mustangs, Econoline vans, Crown Vics, a lot of different cars. Also, Mercuries, the Grand Marquis, Lincoln Town Car. The 4.6 with the 2-valve might arguably even be Ford's best engine. They tick like a clock, and I'm sure a lot of you already know about that one Crown Vic that made it to 1 million miles, and it just needed valve stem seals. Valve guide seals. I mean, I've personally owned several Fords of that engine, and they've all been perfect. No abnormal noises, no loss of power, no smoking. I've owned a Crown Vic and several Mustangs and an Econoline with that engine in it. It's also an F-150. I've had too many cars in my life. A lot of Fords, too. Next, I think one of Ford's best engines is the 2-liter Duratec. That is found in the Ford Focus, I believe, from late 2000s, like 06, 07, all the way up through 2018 in North America. The 2.0 liter 4-cylinder, non-turbocharged, naturally aspirated. I saw one guy on the Ford Tech forums who had customers with over 900,000 miles on it. I've personally owned at least 5 Focuses. All the engines, no matter how many miles are on them, they all run like they're new. No noises on startup, no noises while driving, no spark knock or anything like that. And I have seen customers who definitely neglect oil changes on the Focuses, and they still tick like clocks. When they get some miles on them, you might need to put a valve cover gasket on them. That's about it. Even the ignition coils seem to last forever. All right, I'll mention a couple more here. The Z-Tech engine, the predecessor to the 2-liter Duratec. The Z-Tech 2-liter 4-cylinder, found in the Focuses from the early 2000s. Pretty much the same deal as the 2-liter Duratec. They run forever. Just might need a valve cover gasket once they get some miles on them. But in addition to that, you'll need to do the timing belt and water pump, because those are timing belt driven engines. Can't leave out the 7.3 diesel. All right, for you diesel guys there. The 7.3 liter diesel from the early 2000s, roughly, give or take a decade. Well, just take a decade. I mean, there's probably started in the late 90s. I don't remember for sure, but I know those are incredibly durable, reliable engines, the 7.3 diesel. Do one honorable mention here. The 3.5 liter and 3.7 liter V6 engines in the older Edges and Explorers, base model F-150s, old V6 Mustangs, like 2010 or so. I say old, but yeah, the 3.5 and 3.7 liter V6. Extremely reliable engines. They just have one fatal flaw, which is why it's only an honorable mention, and that is the water pump. When they fail, you have to pull the timing cover off and the timing chains in order to get to it. And if they fail in the wrong way, they can fill the crankcase with coolant. But other than that, they are very stout and tough engines. The V6 engines also in the late 2000s and early 2010s, Escapes. The V6 is also very reliable. It should be a honorable mention as well. I want to say like 2008 to 2011 in the North American market. Only thing with those is they're going to leak some oil and potentially burn out the PCM for the ignition coil drivers, but that's about it. Moving on, let's talk about Ford's worst engines now. Over the past, say, 20 years. I specialize in transmissions, so I don't get my hands super dirty with engines all the time, but I have a good general idea of this. Pretty much engines to kind of try to avoid, maybe not necessarily, but the most flawed engine, I would say, is the 1.5 liter four-cylinder. From the factory, well, first of all, those came in Ford Escapes and Fusions, and they come in a turbocharged setup, so it's the 1.5 EcoBoost four-cylinder. Like I said, Escapes, Fusions, certain model Lincolns as well, MKC, possibly. And the design flaw there is, I believe they call it an open deck design for the block, for the coolant passages. It doesn't hold up, and sorry for the sunlight. The block will warp and cause coolant intrusion into the combustion chamber. I do believe that the updated design block that you replace it with is redesigned, and it shouldn't happen again. But yeah, that just wanted to point that out. That's a major repair when that happens. So next, I think I'm going to go ahead and go with the early 2000s Focuses with a 2-liter SPI engine, not the Z-Tech, but the other one it came with. The 2-liter 4-cylinder SPI, split port injection, I think that's what it stands for, were known to drop valves and cause catastrophic engine damage. I wasn't around the dealership at that time. However, I know people that were, who I work with, and they dropped valves all the time. If you're going to get an old Focus from the early 2000s, get a Z-Tech, and you're going to have a great car. Just don't get the SPI. And this next one, in the North American market, I believe 2015 through 2018, in the Ford Focus, there is a 1.0 liter 3-cylinder EcoBoost. It has a timing belt and oil pump belt that is submerged in oil while you're driving. It's a bathed timing belt and a oil-bathed oil pump belt. The issue with these is at about 60 to 100,000 miles. It just depends. The oil pump belt's going to break and cause catastrophic engine damage and send metal through the turbocharger, and you'll want to replace the long block and the turbo for that. I believe Ford's bulletin and information is blaming that failure on the tensioner for the oil pump belt. So definitely every 80 to 100,000 miles, give or take, you might want to have that service done, get the timing belt and tensioners and oil pump belt and tensioners replaced. Other than that, they're decent engines, but that's a fatal flaw with those. And at the dealer, we see those Focuses come in a lot with the engine damaged due to oil starvation. So, I mean, generally speaking, there are fixes. There are permanent fixes for these engines, but from a reliability standpoint, from the factory, they have fatal flaws, these engines that I'm mentioning here. Almost forgot. Maybe one of Ford's worst mistakes, the 543 valve. Can't forget the 543 valve. As the engine wears and gets miles on it, it starts to slightly lose oil pressure a little bit, and that has a drastic effect on the cam phasers. It causes them to start knocking on a cold start. They also have issues with the roller followers wearing out and causing a tapping noise in the engine. And if you just let it go and you just keep driving it, I've seen it tear up the crankshaft, or I'm sorry, not crankshaft, the camshaft. And the cylinder head, it'll wear into there as well. So if you let it go, you might end up needing camshafts and the cylinder heads and the timing job. Now you can go in there preemptively and do a high flow oil pump from Melling. I'm not a sponsor from Melling, but they make high flow oil pumps, and you can do the cam phasers and timing chains, and you'll get a lot more life out of the engine. But you might need to do the roller followers at some point. All right, I'll do one final honorable mention here on the least reliable Ford engines. The 4-liter single overhead cam engines found in older Explorers from the mid-2000s, maybe the Mustangs as well. I mean, they're not bad while they last, but once the timing chain starts to wear out and you need to replace it, one of the timing chains is on the back of the engine. The back of the engine, that's right. So you'll want to either pull the engine out to get to it, or maybe pull the transmission out and get to it. But yeah, not the best design there. All right, that concludes it. I hope it was entertaining for you, informative. If you have anything to add, if you've owned any of these engines and you want to talk about it, you can write it in the comments below. Anything you think I should have included on this list, you can write down there as well. Have yourself a great day, and thanks for watching.